How should you dress in your 20s? Well, first, I'm going to assume that you are in relatively decent shape. Because if you're not, then that would be the first thing I advise. Before going and spending money on clothing, focus on the mannequin underneath. But I'm also going to assume that, well, actually, I'm not going to assume about any particular amount of money you might have, because in your 20s is a huge spectrum, okay? I just turned 27, and when I was 20, the kind of lifestyle I had, the places I was going, and the places I could afford to shop are wildly different from who I am at 27. So I'll assume a fairly broad spectrum. Okay, but let's talk about actually selecting your style and crafting it and picking the clothes. Now, the first thing I will say is that people will always be critical of the way you dress if you do anything remotely intentional and beyond the ordinary. Now, I am a young man who dresses very formally, and this suits my lifestyle, this suits what I do. And sometimes, people will kind of be taken aback by it, more so younger people than older people. Why are you dressed in a suit? It's not the 1950s anymore. Oh, you've come from a wedding. And I think, well, yeah, it's not the 1950s, but I also don't want to dress like a rapper because I'm a 27-year-old Englishman. I don't want to look like I'm in a Coolio video. And I don't want to wear baggy clothes, streetwear, things that don't suit my personality and the things that I do. So when I see somebody who's dressed very sloppily, I always wonder, why are you wearing, Crocs and socks? Why are you wearing a tracksuit? Is that really how you want to be perceived? You have to ask yourself that. And this can apply whether you're a 21-year-old student or a 29-year-old looking to enter the C-suite. How do you want to be perceived? That's the question to ask yourself. And I would say that for most men in their 20s, you want to dress for respect. Dress in a way that helps you get taken seriously. One of the things that I found most frustrating, particularly in my early 20s, is that people judge you because of your age, right? People assume, well, you're 22, you don't really know shit about fuck, and actually, why would I listen to you or hire you or give you any money or my time of day? When you show that you know how to present yourself, however, as an adult, then things can change. One of the reasons I got so interested in dressing well was because I was actually a journalist when I was younger, and I used to do things like, not invade people's personal space, but sometimes I'd have to talk to people that really didn't want to talk to me, or, go and knock on people's doors perhaps that didn't really want to have their doors knocked on. And if I dressed in a way that was professional and showed respect, that immediately lowered their antagonism. So I found that extremely powerful. And as a young man, you are going to face quite a lot of antagonism. But the way you look is basically a shortcut for how people should treat you. There are many different ways that you might want to be treated, and many different shortcuts and signals that you can send depending on the industry. When I actually had an interview a few times for advertising agencies, that was a career I was interested in. I wanted to transition from being a journalist to a copywriter. When I'd go for these job interviews at these ad agencies, literally the creative director might be wearing a sweatsuit, a hoodie, literally in the job interview. So if I turned up looking like this, that would have signaled to him, I don't understand your industry and I don't fit in here, don't hire me. So you have to adapt the way you dress. For that interview, I would have worn something like a suede jacket and a polo shirt. But ultimately, dress for your personality. And as you go through your 20s, you might find that actually the way you want to dress informs the type of career and the kind of places that you want to be. If you want to be wearing the suit and tie all the time, don't go into a profession where that would be ridiculous. You have to pick the lifestyle that suits you. And ultimately, dress for your personality. If you wouldn't feel comfortable and confident looking like this, then don't do it. But for me, I know that I feel like $1,000,000 when I dress well. I just want to talk about a few clothing brands that I would recommend for men in their 20s. It entirely depends on your budget, okay? When I was in my earlier 20s, I would shop at places like H&M, Zara, Abercrombie & Fitch, And honestly, you can dress very well at these places. Sometimes I'll walk down Michigan Avenue in Chicago and I'll go to these stores just to take a look at what they have, and I'll actually end up buying some things. I'll buy a polo shirt from H&M, a pair of chinos. I even bought a blazer from Zara the other week, simply because it looked good. And honestly, a lot of people can't tell the difference between cheaper clothes and more expensive clothes. They can tell the difference between really cheap, like Shein clothes and Tom Ford, but a lot of people wouldn't know the difference between, let's say, a blazer I got from Zara and a blazer I got from Suit Supply. It's more about how it fits you and how it feels and how it looks. Now, as your budget gets bigger, a store like Suit Supply is a really good middle-of-the-road kind of option. You're going to get very good value for money. I also really like Charles Tyrwhitt. That was a store that was only really in England for a long time, and now I've noticed increasingly they're opening stores in the US, and you can also shop online. So if you're building up your rotation of dress shirts, I mean, this shirt is from Charles Tyrwhitt. If you're building that, you're looking to get some chinos, maybe a couple of suits. These are the kind of stores that as you enter more of a professional adult era in your 20s, these are places that you can go. Ultimately, you want to dress in your 20s in a way that's classic, yet still somewhat youthful. You don't want to look like you're wearing your dad's clothes. When you're wearing a suit, the last thing you want is for people to think you've borrowed your dad's suit from the 1990s. And fit is a huge part of that. People talk about classic and timeless style, but the reality is fit is always changing. Okay, so if you do buy something secondhand, if you do buy something vintage, you're looking to get good value for money, please, for the love of God, get it tailored. Make sure that it fits you in a relatively modern way. And you can also select clothing from eras that are currently seeing somewhat of a resurgence in fashion, okay? So right now, we exist at a time when the 80s, in a 40-year cycle from the 1940s to the 80s to the 2020s, has come back. But for the majority of young men, I really wouldn't recommend getting too caught up in vintage clothing. If you want to dress in a way that's professional, that's going to get you taken seriously when you're networking, when you're trying to find a job, when you're dating as well, modern clothing, really, it's the best option. You can get good outfits from H&M, you can get good outfits from Zara, and if you can afford it, go to Charles Tyrwhitt, Suit Supply, those types of places. Dress for how you want to be treated. Make sure you dress in a way that will signal to others to give you respect, to give you a bit more time of day than they normally would for the average guy in their 20s. And that is the power of style. Good luck with that. And also, if you would like feedback on any of your outfits, then what you can do is you can actually just DM me on Instagram. I'll do my best to reply. Send me a photo and I'll tell you what I think.